Antiques Roadshow is back to the Southwest with a stop in Tucson, Arizona.
Now, I'm not a cowboy.
I never could tell that.
Whoa, really?
I still like him.
Antiques Roadshow could not pass up a chance to visit San Javier Mission, the white dove of the desert. One of the finest examples of Spanish colonial architecture in the United States, this National Historic Landmark was completed in 1797 when southern Arizona was still a part of New Spain. Visitors and parishioners alike appreciate the history and beauty of the church's original statuary and murals. Back at Roadshow, we're always on the lookout for captivating art and antiques. This poster had more than one expert very excited.
This is a poster that is from Colt's Firearms Manufacturing that I found in my great-grandfather's store. Went in the store after he had passed away, and it was curled up in a corner.
The artist is a great American illustrator and painter named Frank Schoonover. So Frank Schoonover was known as the Dean of Delaware Artists, and he was born in 1877 and died in 1972 after having painted, they say, more than 2,000 separate illustrations.
Wow.
And this is a painting that he did in 1925,
wow.
And the title is Tex and Patches.
Tex and the horse.
The painting was so popular that it appears on the cover of two books. One actually a book about Schoonover's art with the title The Illustrator of the North American Frontier, and it also appeared on the cover of a novel called The Range Boss by Charles Seltzer. Now, you might well ask me, how do I know that the artist is Frank Schoonover?
How do you know that the artist is Frank Schoonover?
Thank you for asking.
You're welcome.
Part of this poster has been matted out, and at the bottom down here originally was his signature in the painting, Frank Schoonover, and the date 1925.
Okay.
And I have found similar images online, which is how I know that should be there. So that's a little bit about the man, the painter and the illustrator. It's a little bit about the painting, Tex and Patches. Now something about the poster.
Okay.
Winchester and Colt are two of the most famous firearm manufacturers in America. Colts are the #1 collected pistols in the world, and some of my colleagues here got very excited about this piece. Now, I'm not a cowboy.
I never could tell that.
I'm a city boy, so gun posters don't speak to me in the same way that they speak to other people. And we did a little research on this piece. There's actually 3 variations of the poster.
Okay.
There's a version in Spanish, there's a version without any text on top, and then there's this, the most desirable English language version.
Wow.
There are a few condition issues. Even with those condition issues, it's such a rare piece, and still the colors are so bright.
They really are.
That's what drives the value. That's what drives the excitement of gun and Colt enthusiasts around the world. Now, my city slicker, not cowboy appraisal of this poster at auction, I would say it's worth between $4,000 and $6,000.
No way.
Way. Now, my enthusiastic Western colleagues and gun collecting friends on the floor of the convention center feel that this should be worth between $7,000 and $10,000. But
No
I think, way. And as one of my gun buddies said, if you have $200,000 to $300,000 worth of Colt pistols on the walls of your study, why wouldn't you want this hanging there?
I can see that. Very nice, thank you. Wow. I was not expecting that at all. I was thinking a couple $100.
A very dear friend of mine, she and her husband were close friends of Charles Loloma. And I remember Charles driving up in his Rolls Royce and parking it in their driveway. He spent a lot of time with his family. They became very, very close, and he decided to make pieces of jewelry for my dear friend. A lot of pieces of jewelry, and actually made the pieces at her house, some of them.
And you got these pieces from your friend?
I bought them from my friend. She had a lot, and she, I think, gave me first opportunity. And I knew that he was an important artist at the time. I'm sure that she gave a dear friend a deal.
What'd she charge you for them? I'm curious.
For both of them, it was $3,500, no tax, because it was just between the two of us.
How long ago was this?
30 years ago, well before his passing, and she actually gave this piece to me.
The print. It's
Yeah.
very nice print. Well, I'm sure you're aware that Charles Loloma is pretty big news these days. He's been selling at really good prices. Now, your examples, the bracelet is not a classic Charles Loloma piece. He was a Hopi artist, and he was known for his cluster work with precious and semi-precious stones. So this is kind of unusual, this bracelet. It's got two really beautiful turquoise settings in gold on kind of a mottled silver background. The bracelet has the inscription Loloma on the inside, which is how he signed his bracelets. The ring is a beautiful gold ring, once again with a really nice stone. I'm not 100% sure which mine the stone would have come, but
I think they were from different mines.
Yeah, and knowing Charles Loloma, they were the best available at the time. He used a lot of precious stones in his jewelry. He'd even use diamonds occasionally.
She kept those pieces.
She kept those pieces.
Yeah.
So you bought these about 30 years ago. I think they look like the type of work he was doing in the 60s and 70s. I think in today's auction world, the ring would probably bring about $4,000 to $6,000. I think the print would probably bring about $1,200 to $1,600 at auction. But I think the bracelet would probably bring $20,000 to $25,000
Wow.
in today's market.
Oh, gee.
It's not the normal friendship quilt that you see. It's actually has historical significance because it has veterans of the war and then their family names around it. Did you already get them appraised? Not yet.
It's kind of exciting.
It's a great chair.
I love it. So what are the arms made of?
Lucite, probably about 1968.
When my dad was in high school in Los Angeles, he was friends with Jackie Robinson. And I have a group of letters and an image of Jackie playing UCLA football. It's kind of personal, but it's really great historically, too.
Absolutely. We've got letters from the late 1930s. Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in 1947. We're talking about letters that predates that significantly. He was, for all intents and purposes, a kid. He was a teenager.
Right.
Who eventually went on to spark one of the most significant events in sports history. I personally have not encountered a Jackie Robinson handwritten letter collection or item from this young. Tell us about the content.
Well, the content in these letters are personal, more like a friend writing to a friend instead of like a pen pal, which I found really interesting. He talks about how the UCLA curriculum is more difficult than his junior college, his JC stuff, and he was having trouble adjusting.
Right. He talks about how he chose UCLA over Oregon. He talks about seeking your dad out while he was in LA because you really wanted to see him, his
Right.
buddy. He invites your father to his wedding. He says, hey, I'm glad you found a church. I'm looking for one too. These are personal to Jackie Robinson.
Right,
Nothing
yeah.
to do with baseball, nothing to do with sports. This comes from a time where his scholastic achievement was more important to him than the things we know he's famous for.
Right.
And to me, that's why this is significant. Here we see a 1938 letter. In the back, he signs Jackie Robinson, a 19-year-old Jackie Robinson signature. I've never seen one that young. It's truly amazing. Have you had this appraised?
I haven't had it appraised. It's actually, I knew about it a little bit before my dad passed away, but then I inherited his scrapbook. And this is actually a graduation card I didn't even know I had because it was separate in the album from all the Jackie stuff.
Sure.
And I was just looking, and I was like, holy smokes, here's another one.
Sure. Well, what I can tell you is this. At auction, we can see this fetching anywhere between $15,000 and $20,000.
Whoa, really?
And we're talking about the collection. I think it would, don't separate these items.
Oh, no, right? Holy, that's pretty cool. I mean, my dad would be really proud right now because, you know, he considered him a pretty tight friend. There you go, Dad.
My great-grandfather was the ambassador to China during the Boxer Rebellion. And my great-grandmother befriended the Empress. She didn't like most foreigners, but she did like her. And when my mother was born, the Empress Dowager sent one of her ladies-in-waiting to buy a present. And this was the present. There were 2 of these. My sister has the other one.
One of the things about this piece is it is 19th century in terms of the carving. It's jadeite, and it's a very, very fine quality of jadeite. That brilliant green, and it's extremely translucent. And with a nice coral bead and the little seed pearls that were probably on the original mounting, which would have been just a little silk cord that was through it.
Probably.
And the 2 characters here are double happiness, Xishuang.
Okay.
But you have a very, very good piece of jade, but then you have an incredible piece of provenance. Because one of the things about Sushi was the first member of the imperial family who ever did a public relations campaign with the West. And after the Boxer Rebellion, there were talks about deposing the dynasty on the part of the Europeans. And they survived it basically through Sushi's bravado and the parties that she had for European women. She actually met them.
Yes, she did.
She had a European take her photographs, and she gave presents like this. At the time, in the 19th century, this was a very, very high quality piece of jade, but not the best.
Okay.
Right? And that was her like slight in the whole thing. But nonetheless, we start getting to a value on a piece like this. I'd estimate the value on this as just a nice piece of jade at $30,000 to $50,000.
Oh my gosh. I'm very surprised.
In addition, because of the provenance on the piece, right, this could easily go twice that high end, and that would be at auction.
I'm amazed.
It's a kind of thing. This pendant, if it were 30 years ago, $700.
Really?
You know.
So the fact that it's been in the family all this time.
Exactly.
Has made a difference.
It certainly did.
It certainly has.
I brought some letters from Israel Putnam during the Revolutionary War. I really don't know much about them.
How did you get them?
From my grandmother, I inherited them.
How did she get them? Do you know?
I'm not exactly sure. She was a collector.
Of what sort of things?
A lot of artifacts, furniture, artwork.
Okay. You've got a collection of material relating to Israel Putnam. He's a famous Revolutionary War general. He was an important figure at the Battle of Bunker Hill. He is credited with having said, "Don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes." He may or may not have said that, but he is generally credited. And you've got a collection of material of letters, some of which predate the Revolutionary War, but some of which are actually written during the Revolutionary War. If you look at this letter and this letter, those 2 letters are early. One is 1768 and the other is January of 1775, which is 4 months before Lexington and Concord, before the Revolutionary War begins. These are sort of businessy letters. One is about buying a horse, the other is about a land transaction. But they are entirely in Israel Putnam's hand, in his rather unusual style. This letter is a letter written by him as a general, as a commanding general. It's September 13th, 1777. It's written from Putnam to John Hancock, who is at that time the president of the Continental Congress. And it is a really dense, rich letter reporting on the events that are happening at that moment. At September of 1777, Putnam is in New York. He is preparing to fight Clinton at the Battle of Fort Montgomery, which the colonists lose. But so he's sending important information about the state of his troops. That's actually in the hand of a secretary, but signed by Putnam on the second page. This letter, it's a great war date 1776 letter, And it talks about transmitting carbines and muskets and powder. I mean, it's clearly Revolutionary War based. But if you look very closely, this one says I. Putnam Jr. This is actually the son.
Oh.
The other piece you brought in is a mezzotint portrait. The text here is in French, which is not uncommon, but was actually published in London. This is a contemporary portrait of Putnam. Revolutionary War material is very, very hot right now. It is one of these critical war periods that is always collectible and interest continues. I would put the value of the pre-war letters each at $2,000 to $3,000 a piece.
Okay.
The one from the son is, because he's a lesser figure, will be in the $800 to $1,200 range. The Putnam portrait is $1,000 to $1,500. But this letter, this war date letter with the rich information about these important battles, communications from Putnam to be passed on to George Washington, that letter I would value at $12,000 to $18,000.
No way. Wow. Crazy.
Yeah.
And then you're going to go from here to the volunteer guides, and they'll show you the location.
Thank you so much.
Picked it up at the UN store, and so I thought it looked like it was from Africa, but I don't really know.
It's a good try. Let's start with tribal with that.
Okay.
Go to metalwork first.
Okay.
It's very unusual. It's very nice.
A friend of mine found it in a thrift shop, and she thought it was a planter, and she brought it over, and I turned it over and had a signature, so his name is Das Gupta.
That's right, Prodash das Gupta.
Right.
And he's an Indian artist. And it's dated 1948, and it's number 5 of 5.
Okay.
So he was probably the most well-known Indian sculptor of the middle part of the 20th century. He started working in the 1940s, and he was very, very successful. He had an exhibition of his work at the Tate Gallery.
At the Tate, oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So he was really, really well known. Did you ever wonder what these little circles were?
So that's not just worn?
Well,
no?
What these are is when they cast these pieces, sometimes there's a casting flaw. And what happens is the bronze doesn't completely go into the mold, or there are gaps. So they drill a hole here and they thread it. And they have a bronze screw, and they screw it in, and then they polish it off. And then this would have had a patina on it, and that would have covered all of these little circles.
Oh, okay.
You know? So your friend paid
$7.
Really?
Yeah.
Did she bargain him down, or just she thought it was worth $7?
I think she paid the asking price.
She did, okay. Wow,
I would have asked the senior discount
That's
myself.
right, I would have also. His work is very popular, and this whole field of modern Indian art is actually booming right now.
Oh, really?
His work comes up at auction, and one of these sold for $10,000.
No, $10,000. $10,000. Wow.
I inherited these pieces. I inherited them from my mother about 16 years ago, I guess it was, 17 years ago, when she passed away. I believe these pieces were given to my paternal grandmother by my paternal grandfather, and my father gave them to my mother, of course.
Okay. And do you know anything about them, the history or where they came from or anything like that?
I really don't.
You don't? Okay, well, let's start at the top. Up here we have platinum and diamond and onyx brooch. You've got the calibre onyx all set here, and then you've got the diamond set down here, which comes down to 2 pear shapes here. This one's American. It was made in about 1910, 1920. There's no signature. We don't know who the maker is, but it's a wonderful example. The movement on the brooch is absolutely superb. The channel set of the onyx is lovely, and the matching of the colors of the onyx doesn't waver at all. So it's just a beautifully produced piece. I think if you were to try and replace this piece here, easily you would have to pay around $12,000 for something like that. It's a wonderful thing. It's very simple. The lines are beautiful. It's just a great piece. And then we can move on to the piece at the bottom here. It's around the same sort of period. It's about 1915, 1920. It's actually by Carlton and Company. And that was a New York firm that was founded in 1909. And it's probably one of the better known American jewelers from that period. They then went on to open a store in Paris and also down in Palm Beach. Again, this one is set in platinum with diamonds. And then the piece here is actually a wonderful piece of rock crystal, which has been engraved with a sort of mythical design. And then when we move down, you have a floral design here, and that's actually set with, again, onyx and diamonds. And then we move down to a wonderful platinum drop, which set with a nice onyx drop on the bottom. A really wonderful piece. It's a great company. We don't find lots of pieces by them, but it's they weren't as prolific as some of the other makers. To replace something like that, you would easily have to spend about $25,000 on that one piece. So the prices of the two brooches come to around $37,000. So I hope you're happy.
I am happy.
You should be happy.
I'm amazed.
Wonderful things.
Don't tell my kids.
I wouldn't dream of it.
I'm a big fan of Florida. You brought in a little piece of Florida here. Do you know the artist?
Yes, W. Staples Drown.
Indeed. The painting is signed here in the lower left very clearly. W. Staples Drown, who lived from 1856 to 1915. And William Staples Drown was an artist who worked at the turn of the century primarily in New England. He's from Massachusetts. He also worked in Providence. He was very active with the Providence Art Colony. Drown would travel extensively, very curious about different parts of the country, different parts of the world, summered in Europe, and of course traveled to Florida to paint, including beautiful St. Augustine. How did you come to acquire this painting?
Well, it was first bought by my great-grandfather back around the turn of the last century.
Okay.
Then it hung in my grandparents' house for ever since I could remember.
Right.
And when they passed on, it came to me.
So there's been kind of an unbroken line of provenance right through your family.
Yes.
And your family's originally from?
Providence, Rhode Island.
Okay. Which would make sense based upon where the artist worked.
Yes.
Yeah. Drown is best known as an artist who did landscapes. He's an artist who worked with a very soft palette, very delicate palette. He was quite accomplished, and he's an artist who, like a lot of artists of that period, snowbirds we might call them today, found their way to sunnier climes in Florida. Thomas Moran, Herman Herzog, Anthony Teamy, Frank Shapley. The list goes on and on and on. What's interesting is that for several of those artists I've named, the high records for their works that have ever sold at auction are not scenes of their homeland, rather scenes of Florida. What else is great about your painting? The condition. Needs a cleaning. How long have you had it?
35 years.
Untouched since then, I imagine?
Right. Hung it on the wall, tried not to do anything to it.
Oh, I'm glad you didn't. It's an original oil on canvas. It has not been relined, and on the back, the painting is titled, it's signed on the back, and it's dated 1895.
Right.
The market for works by W. Staples Drown has come up. If we look at the prices going back since the 90s, and then we look into the 2000s, prices have risen steadily at auction.
Nice.
If your painting was offered today, this lovely view of St. Augustine, Florida, would probably be offered at auction for $10,000 to $15,000.
Wow.
And that's based on what comparable paintings by Drown have been selling for and have been offered for at auction recently. The most expensive painting by Drown has sold for over $30,000.
And I'm so glad my great-grandfather bought it.
I collect animated antique clocks, and there was an ad on the internet of a fellow in California that was going out of, his antique store was going out of business because of health problems. And so he sent me pictures of some clocks he was selling, and this was one of them. And I got really excited, and I bought this one.
So what appealed to you about it?
Well, I had never seen one like it before. The animation was just over the top. So I do collect Zapplers, and it has kind of a Zappler type movement on it. So
I agree with you. It is certainly in the Zappler family. A classic Zappler is a little Austrian clock
of this size, and normally they just tell time, and normally they need winding every day. They sit under a dome, and you've told me that you have the dome to this clock at home.
Right.
But when we saw this one, we realized that it was different. Even though it comes in under the Zappler family, one of the biggest differences between this clock and a typical Zappler is that the typical Zappler has a little cowtail pendulum, they call it. And that typically ticks in front of the dial, in front of the hands. So we feel certain that this is exactly what that is. It's an Austrian Zappler with some significant differences. It doesn't have a cowtail pendulum, it has two. And if we revolve the clock, we'll show how it has indeed two little pendulums. It has two little pendulums because that is what is contributing to the automata. It really does need both of those to achieve this kind of motion. I think it's significant because it is in really good original condition. That's the original base. I feel certain that this enamel dial, which is in really good condition, is the original enamel dial, and those little pierced and gilded hands are the original hands.
Really?
So that makes it stand out. Very often these are damaged. They're small enough to where things happen to them. This is brass, but this has been given a coat of gold, so it's slightly gilded, I would say. The hands have been gilded with gold.
What age would you say it is?
I'm guessing that it dates from 1810, 1820. Can you tell me what you paid for it?
I paid $500 for it. And that was about 15 years ago.
Is that right? Okay. Typically, a little Zappler of a normal size and shape would sell retail for anywhere between $500 to $700. This one, I would put its value retail at between $2,500 and $3,000.
Wow.
Because it's that different.
Really?
Yes.
Wonderful. Going down on it.
It is a Revolutionary War bucket inscribed with the whole story here. And my relatives put their gold and silver in the bucket, and then they put it in the pig's will.
They were taught to make them as utilitarian objects that could be sold in basically the U.S. market. There's not a tremendous market value for them.
Well, it's a copper and silver tankard from Karl Kipp, who worked for Roycroft at the beginning of the 20th century. And then he formed 2K Studio around 1913 to 1915. And then the head of Roycroft was killed in the Lusitania, so he then returned to Roycroft to continue on there.
So this one dates to?
Well, I think 1913 to 1915 because it's from his own studio.
Perfect. So I agree with everything you just said, and let me add a few more things to that. So Karl Kipp was a master coppersmith, and copper was the preferred metal of the arts and crafts period. It was cheap, it was available, it was malleable. But this is interesting because in addition to the copper, it has German nickel silver hammered and applied around it. But what's also fascinating about this tankard is it's got a flip lid with silver design and with a lapis cabochon. I know of 3 of these, and one of which is missing the lid. One in copper that was actually with a Roycroft and a Karl Kipp mark both. This one, I think, on today's market, and the market's come down a bit, but at auction I'd estimate this for somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000.
Wow.
The last one I had I sold for $30,000.
Wow.
So they have, they're super rare. I only, again, know of 1 and maybe 2 more with a cabochon intact, and you found yourself a real gem. You found it at, where'd you find this?
I found it at a garage sale for $2.
For $2.
Yes.
Well, I think we should fill this up with beer and drink it.
Oh,
What do you
definitely, or champagne.
think?
Well, I brought in a walking cane that I had found at a Goodwill in Phoenix, Arizona. And it's a walking cane that I believe is from the Civil War.
So you bought it at the Goodwill store?
Yes, I did.
How much Goodwill did it cost you?
True to the penny price was $6.99.
Big purchase.
A huge purchase.
This one is cool from top to bottom.
Okay.
We have on the handle, it says made
on Stone River Battlefield, which is in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And the battles were actually named on the Union side by the body of water that it was nearest.
Okay.
The Confederates would refer to them as the Battle of Murfreesboro.
Okay.
So we know from the first sentence that it's a northern cane.
Okay.
But it says made on Stone River Battlefield and presented to Hiram Parker on the 4th of March, 1865, by his son, George S. Parker, of the 21st OVLA, the Ohio Volunteer Light Artillery.
Okay.
He joined up on January 31st, 1863, and served all the way to July 21st, 1865.
Wow.
So that 2 years worth of service, they spent a lot of it in Tennessee and Alabama on garrison duty.
Wow.
And that would have been when this was carved.
Wow.
Which is an important fact on this cane.
Okay.
Because a lot of these canes, they're something that was done years afterwards.
Okay.
And they were done for the veterans when they actually needed a cane.
Okay.
But this one is cool because of that date. It's war date. It's beautifully done. You notice we've got the snake. And you see a lot of snakes on carved
Yes.
canes because it flows with the general design. This one, in addition to the snake, we've got the cannon. And what's
I
an
thought that was a bullet.
No, it's a cannon.
Oh, well,
it's a
unbelievable.
wonderful cannon. It's just beautiful. And that's what an artilleryman would want.
Wow.
And hey, Dad, I'm in the artillery. I'm proud to serve my country. And I even have a cannon on your cane.
That's awesome.
And as the snake goes down by the tail, what's on the end?
It looks like a artillery round.
What's cool is that it's a Spencer carbine cartridge. It's the metallic part from the 7-shot Spencer repeating rifle or carbine.
Wow.
Which is one of the things that helped them win the war. It was like having a machine gun at that time.
Wow.
And that one's beautiful. And it's cool. What a way to end a work of art. What's your gut feeling on what it's worth?
I don't know, it's more than $6.99, but I personally thought maybe $1,000. My wife, Joanne, thinks maybe $5,000, but we really don't know. We don't know.
Well, Joanne, I'm sorry. It's not quite $5,000, but it's going to hit right in that middle.
Wow.
If I were going to insure this piece, I would insure it for between $2,000 and $3,000.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
Which is one heck of a return on $6.99.
Yeah, what a great find.
This is a settee that I bought in Ajo, Arizona. My husband wasn't with me, who doesn't like to stop, so I had an opportunity to stop. And I saw this across the room and purchased it, and cats got to it and ripped the cushion, but that's okay. The man told me it's around 200 years old.
Okay.
So you can tell me if it is.
Well, I'll do the best I can. So first, the cat's getting to the seat. You're okay because the seat is not original.
Right.
Do you have any idea what it's made of? The wood?
I thought walnut.
Okay. So this is where it gets very interesting. It is actually a tropical hardwood.
Oh.
So we're able to then identify where it came from.
Good.
Because of the wood that was used to make it.
Okay.
It's a tropical hardwood that is very similar to a rosewood or a sort of mahogany or a padauk.
Okay.
And we believe this to be Dutch Colonial. So either made in one of the Dutch colonies in India or in Indonesia in the 18th century.
Oh.
So it dates from around about 1750 to 1780. So I'm going to take the seat off here and I'll see if I can do this.
You want me to help?
No, I practiced.
Okay.
Let's see if I can do this.
I know it's long.
There we go.
Oh, and dirty.
Thank you so much. As you can see, it has these holes right here. And so that's where it was caned.
Oh,
and so the original cane seating in here. And again, that's why we know it's colonial, because you'd never have upholstery because of the tropical climate. Right. The upholstery would get ruined instantly. The carving is really wonderful. We look at the top of the crest rail, and you have this wonderful leaf tip here. And then this almost very Northern European, Anglo-Dutch crest rail here, and then this urn form backsplat as well. There are some condition issues to talk about. Okay. So the leg broke and they repaired it. Oh. But what's kind of cool is that it's actually repaired with rosewood, which is a very high quality and expensive wood. So you could possibly suggest it was also repaired in the colonies as well. So because there are some elements of this that are made of rosewood, there are certain export restrictions on where rosewood has come from, if it was ethically harvested, and having the object identification. And in today's market, that certainly affects the sale price. If it's for sale in the United States, to the best of my knowledge, there are no issues. But when it comes to exporting the piece, let's say it was a European buyer or a collector who bought it, they would have to go through certain steps to get specific permits to have it exported. It's unusual to see in any nation, whether it's English or American, a 4-chair back settee or a quadruple chair back settee. How much did you pay for it?
$800.
Any idea of the value?
I have none.
Okay. With all of the condition issues, if I were to see this come up for auction in a good and well-publicized auction, I'd expect to see an estimate of $6,000 to $9,000.
Fantastic. That's great.
Brought a box with some liquor bottles inside, as far as I know, that my mother got in the early 60s from an antique dealer, and I believe he got it on the East Coast, Connecticut, I believe. And it belonged to Samuel Colt's brother-in-law. His name was Richard William Hart Jarvis. He was president of the Colt Firearms Company from about 1865 to 1903. I guess that was the longest period anyone was president. But yeah, Samuel Colt was married to his sister. And so that's kind of what I know about it. And it's been in the family a long time. And recently I discovered that it was from Tiffany's in New York, which made me even more excited to bring it to find out what you can tell me about it.
Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the top of the box, because the reason why we know where it came from is because of the initials. What are the initials on the top?
RWHJ, Richard William Hart Jarvis.
When we open the box, we do see some cut glass liquor decanters. Wonderful pieces, cut glass. We know it's cut glass rather than pressed glass because it's still sharp to the touch. So that's a good thing, because cut glass is going to be more expensive than pressed glass. Okay. Now we do have a little bit of damage. There's a big chip right here. Okay. So the glass is probably not the most important thing about this piece. It's the box itself.
So that probably means it was used often then. That's
Probably so. So what we like is the Tiffany & Company label, because it says Tiffany & Company, Union Square. That helps us date the box. They were there about 1870 to about 1910. But the style of the glass tells us that it was probably about 1880. It was not made by Tiffany. It was retailed by Tiffany. It's a burlwood box with bronze mounts. Bronze being more expensive.
Brass, okay.
Bronze being more expensive than brass, so that's a really good thing. What do Colt collectors love more than guns? Liquor.
Oh, well, those kind of, I get you, okay, yeah. I was like, what else do they like?
That's right. At auction, a piece like this could do really well. I'm thinking in the $3,000 to $5,000 range.
Oh, okay, that sounds good.
The value, if it was not associated with the Colt family, would probably actually still be the same. The Colt people like Colt materials, and this is the brother-in-law of Colt, so not exactly Samuel Colt himself.
Right.
So if it was Samuel Colt's piece, I might bump it up a little bit more to $5,000 to $8,000 at auction. But as the brother-in-law, I'm still in the $3,000 to $5,000 range.
I think my mother paid $500 or $550 in the early 60s for it.
So you did pretty well.
I think that's great. Yeah. Thanks, Mom.
Well, I brought in this lamp from my mother-in-law, and if you look at it long enough, it gets uglier and uglier.
It's an ugly little thing, isn't it?
It really does shoot coins in there. Yeah.
Basically, I was in real estate, and real estate slowed down, so we opened a secondhand dealer store. And this is one of the items that got purchased in our store 5 years ago. We knew there was something there, we just didn't know what it was.
This is a very old piece of jewelry, and it's got something that we normally don't see. It's got table-cut diamonds coming down from a pyramid-shaped top to a flat-shaped top, and it's in the evolution of diamond cuts. It's a very important step. Okay. We feel that the piece is 18th century, and it's some sort of an order badge. The iconography is a fleur-de-lis and a cross. It weighs 5 ounces, give or take. That's a lot of gold.
Yeah?
We tested it, we got 22 karat.
Oh, we thought it was 18 karat, actually.
Yes, we come up a little bit higher. We can see that it's a solid built piece of jewelry that was made to be worn as a pendant. And somebody put very, very carefully a brooch attachment to the back of it. The good news about this piece is that it's probably worth more than scrap here. What did you pay for this?
$3,800.
We would feel comfortable giving it a pre-sale auction estimate of $20,000 to $30,000.
Wow. It was amazing. It gave me goosebumps.
They were in my mother's home, and then my sister had them. She is now downsized, so she gave them to me. And I'm not sure where my mother got them. And unfortunately, while Mother is still with us at 103, she doesn't remember where she got them either.
We have two obviously exquisite plates, and that's the key. Now, there's a company, Royal Vienna, which the Royal Vienna Porcelain Factory actually closed in 1864, and these pieces were done a lot later, more than likely between 1900 and 1910. So they're not Royal Vienna, but they're often mistaken as such. The key thing here is that they're of exceptional quality. So, and one of the tip-offs when we get into this type of quality is that each of them, besides being hand-painted, often have a title on the back. So let's go to the first one. Let's come across here and take a quick look. And we see the classic beehive mark, sometimes referred to as a shield mark, and really has no bearing whatsoever other than the fact that we're going to call these Vienna or Royal Vienna style plates.
Okay.
Secondly, we get back to the description here. In this case, written in German, Erblut, meaning bloom or flower.
Okay.
Now, if we come over to this one, we see the similar beehive mark, and we see the description, Reflexion. Now, Royal Vienna style plates do come up frequently, and they're sold all over the country on a steady basis for all kinds of price points. We're going to call them a 9 to maybe a 9.5 out of 10.
Okay.
They're in exceptional condition. You know, the gilding around the edge is just impeccable. There's one key difference between the two plates, and we're going to go to this signature right here, which is the word Wagner. Now, the Wagner family is believed to have been a group of artisans that worked for a number of continental porcelain makers. There's some dissension among the ranks as to whether or not that's actually the case. But what is, without question, and what is key here is that the Wagner name will add value to this plate over and above the other. So today, if you sold these pieces at auction, I think it's reasonable to expect the plate on the right to be estimated for between $1,000 and $1,500.
Oh my word.
And the one with the Wagner name would come in at $1,500 to $2,000.
Oh my. Oh my goodness. Okay.
I bought him from an antiques dealer in Santa Barbara County.
Okay.
A lady was selling her mother's collection, and she had a bunch of small items. She didn't know whether they were reproduction or original items. She collected items from Mexico.
And what year was this?
When I purchased it, it was about 4 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but her mother's collection was probably 40 years old or so.
So has anyone looked at it, or?
No, I had a teacher who looked at a couple pictures of it and said the
Okay.
paint is spectacular, even if, it's not, if it's a reproduction. He liked it, so.
What did you pay for this piece?
I paid $80 for him.
Well, if I had to put a name on this piece, it would be called All the Bells and Whistles.
Okay.
Because it's got everything going for it. It's got this amazing crest at the top, this headdress, the nose ring, the shield here, this staff of authority, and this great painting. It's pretty wild.
Thank you.
Now, it's supposed to come from the west coast of Mexico in the state of Nayarit.
Right.
And the authentic pieces from this area are 200 BC to 200 AD.
Okay.
Now we got to find out whether it's real.
Right. Right.
Unfortunately.
No.
I'm going to break your heart. Unfortunately, it's a reproduction, and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
This top part here,
Right.
this crest, is something that you normally see on Jalisco warriors. Jalisco warriors are from the next province, the next state over.
Okay.
So, in other words, this really doesn't belong on this figure.
Okay.
And they did everything. They put this headdress, and the paint is amazing. So it was suspicious in the beginning, and,
Right.
and you look at it stylistically and you go,
Right.
I don't know. But it's big, it's imposing. Now, the other thing that I did, and I don't know whether you saw me do it, but
Sure.
I don't know whether you're going to be able to hear it, but I pinged on the bottom
Right.
of this right here. Now, people have seen me do this on the show, and I'm sure the viewers right now are going, oh my God, he's pinging again. And what this is it has a very high sound like crystal.
Okay.
What that means is it was fired in an electric kiln.
Okay.
Didn't have electricity 2,000 years ago. Normally, these things would be fired in a pit kiln, and it would be covered up with coals, and it would be fired that way. When you bang on it, you tap it, it sounds much lower.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
So therefore, that stylistically, the fact that it's sort of a marriage of various things.
I was looking at the ears, and the application of the earrings looked kind of odd, and it didn't look like the regular deposits.
Well,
and the fact that it's got this weird glue on the back, so.
Well,
I
yeah,
liked it anyway.
we can just turn this, and you can
Yeah.
see in profile. It's very interesting. I will show one thing to the camera real quickly. You see this line, these black dots are manganese.
Okay.
Now there's almost a flow pattern here, and what they do is they flick it on with a paintbrush
Right.
or a toothbrush. So that's also diagnostic for reproduction.
Okay.
So unfortunately, I have broken your heart. I apologize for that. As a decorative piece in a decorative value, retail, this would be a $200 to $300 piece.
Okay. Okay, great.
If the piece were real,
Uh-huh.
this would be a $15,000 to $20,000 piece.
Okay.
So now you're really depressed?
No, because I had prepared myself either way, so I still like him. I just owe my girlfriend a drink.
I brought my Rolex GMT Master that I bought 55 years ago.
Where did you get it?
I bought it in Germany, in Zweibrücken, at a PX when I was in the Army over there. I bought the watch just before I came back to stateside. My sergeant recommended that before I came back to the States, buy a Rolex watch.
Why did he do that? Do you know?
Well, he thought that was the best watch ever made. And he said, make sure you get one before you go home, and this is the one I liked.
And had you heard of Rolex before that?
Not before that, no. I've never heard or seen one before. I just took his word that it was a great watch, and it is.
And do you still wear it?
I don't wear it very often now. It's kind of a keepsake now. I wear my cheap watch now, and this is my dress watch.
Well, I was very excited when you brought this up to the table. As you know, it's a Rolex. It's a GMT Master model, but it's got some very special things about it. It is the first model GMT Master that was Rolex ever made.
I didn't know that.
It's a model 6542, which we have on the reference number on the paper here. On the box itself, on the edge of the box right here, we have the reference number of the watch. It's incredible that you've saved everything. Is there a reason why you saved all this paperwork? We usually don't see this.
I don't know. I'm just lucky, I guess.
Well, this watch is totally complete. You have the watch. I know you've replaced the original bracelet at some point. This is a replacement bracelet, but we do have the original bracelet here in the box, which is also dated that it was manufactured in the first quarter of 1960. And according to the papers of the watch, you purchased it in April of 1960.
Correct.
You have the original sales receipt right here. I noticed you bought 2 watches.
Yes.
We saw the other one. The other one wasn't as special as this one. What did you pay for this watch?
This watch, I paid the $120. The other watch, which had some gold to the bracelet, I bought from my dad, and I paid $104 for that.
Was that a lot of money back in 1960?
It was a lot of money.
Yeah?
My salary in the Army was just under $100 a month.
Okay, so that was over a month's salary.
Yes.
Do you know what this paper is right over here?
No.
Rolexes were sent to the observatory in Geneva to be certified as chronometers. And that is the original chronometer bulletin that if you look on the left-hand side of it, you'll see the numbers, and they actually time the watch to tell what timekeeping it kept, plus or minus how many seconds it lost. We also have the original brochure on the watch. Everything's complete. You have the original hang tags. I'm very pleased to tell you that this watch today at auction is a very, very collectible watch. Just the watch on its own merit would be worth today between $35,000 and $45,000. But this watch is worth much more because you saved the box and all the paperwork for it. Easily today, it's $65,000 to $75,000 in the market. Wow. Probably more than a month's pay in the military right now.
Wow. I had no idea. I'm speechless. If you would have told me $1,500, I would have been happy.
And now, it's time for the Roadshow feedback booth.
This is Birdie. I found out that she is a Zuni pot from the mid to late 1800s. And I also learned that everybody here at the Antiques Roadshow has impeccable taste. Thank you.
This motorcycle is very fun, and also I'm very nervous.
They're not worth $1. And I brought my violin, actually my son's violin, and it was worth $500, which makes sweet music and makes me want to do the happy dance.
And I'm a teacher, but today I got schooled in the art of antique appraisal. Turns out that priceless is in the eye of the beholder, and I don't behold in nothing priceless.
We came to the Roadshow to appraise my cufflinks today, and for my first wife, this one's a third. She told me they were tourmalines, but it turns out they were glass. But thanks anyway for the Rolex.
And I brought my little sad irons today to get appraised, and my little goose iron is worth $65, and my little one that I thought was from Mexico, and I thought it was worth more, he said it was worth about $40. And I had such a good time today. Even waiting in line was fun, because you meet so many neat people. And I'm glad. Thanks, Antiques Roadshow.
I'm Mark Wahlberg. Thanks for watching. See you next time on Antiques Roadshow.